Well, good evening, everybody. Happy Tuesday. This is Graeme Spicer. I'm the managing director at Edge Studio, and really excited to spend the next 60 minutes talking about building effective voice actor websites. And we've got none other than the infamous Joe Davis with us tonight, who's going to be telling us everything he knows about building websites. Well, maybe not everything, but hopefully enough to tell us how to tell right from wrong. That's for sure. I just wanted to go through a couple of quick housekeeping things. First of all, we're recording tonight, so that means that you will get a link in the next couple of days to be able to go back and review both the audio and video. So don't get too concerned if we go through something pretty quickly and you're trying to jot down notes and you didn't quite get everything written down. No problem. You will be getting a link to a recording. The other reason I wanted to mention the whole recording thing to you is just keep in mind that any information you share tonight, and I'm going to get to that in just a second, just keep in mind that it is going to be recorded and it is going to be posted to the Edge Studio website and probably some other spots as well, including possibly YouTube. So just keep that in mind if you are going to be sharing any information with us tonight. If you do have questions, we're going to have a questions segment at the end of tonight's presentation. So just jot them into the questions box, which is towards the bottom of your GoToWebinar control panel. And I'm going to be keeping my eye on those questions, and I will moderate the Q&A at the end of the presentation. Joe tells me he's actually going to be doing two sections to his presentation. He's going to tell us a little bit about best practices when it comes to how we as voice actors should be presenting ourselves on the internet. And I got to tell you, I mean, I'm horrible at this. And I'm definitely going to be one of Joe's first customers. And I'm going to be one of Joe's first customers because my website's terrible. And I am really looking forward to the knowledge I'm going to be able to walk away with tonight. So that's going to be the first part, is Joe's going to talk to us about best practices and about websites, and not just websites, but also search engine optimization and some other topics as well. And then we are looking for a few brave volunteers who are willing to let us look at their website live, and Joe can give us kind of a mini critique on what he likes about your website and what he thinks could use some improvement. And Joe, as I mentioned, my website sucks, and I'm going to throw mine out there as a volunteer in case we don't get enough other volunteers to step forward. But I am quite confident. We've got, I don't know, over 50 people on the line here right now. I'm sure we'll get a couple of brave souls. So once again, please type any questions you have into the questions box. If you're willing to let us take a look at your website, please type the website address into the questions box so that we can just click the address in the questions box and it will immediately come up in Joe's browser. So with that said, I want to talk just quickly a little bit about Joe, as long as I can. Where did that email go?
I can read my own bio if you want.
You know what? In that case, Joe, please introduce yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you, with much embarrassment for the poor introduction, Mr. Joe Davis.
Well, thank you, Graeme, and that was a lovely introduction. I've never quite had one like that, so that was great. So as part of my bio that Graeme was going to read, it mentions that I do dance instruction. That's actually the last thing that's on there. And the reason that is because voice actors are always asking me about what they should put in their bios. And you know, do I go technical? Do I put stuff about me personally? And I'm a big fan of connecting with the people that you're going to be working with. And so I've had many people who have reached out to me simply because they were involved in dance at some point in their lives. And so the fact that I teach salsa and swing and merengue, they relate to that. And so we formed this bond over that. So if you're going for a very clean corporate look, then that might not be the best direction. But if you really are trying to build a business around your own personal identity and forming those relationships with who you're working with, I think it's a good strategy. But anyway, I founded voice actor websites and have been working with the voiceover industry for about 5 years and developed many, many different sites devoted to talent, producers, casting directors, agents. WOVA, which is World of Voices organization, we created their online platform, voiceover.biz, and a whole bunch of others. And so now I spend my days talking to voice actors, helping them market themselves, both on and offline, mostly online. And online, really, it all starts with a website. So there's, before you even get to thinking about what you're going to do with your website, you have to define your goals. Is your website going to be an extension of your business card, where you've had some sort of prior interaction with someone and you're sending them to your website to listen to your demos? So that's one strategy, and you develop a website around that. Another strategy is where you're trying to bring in people that you haven't had some sort of prior interaction with. And that generally involves either search engine optimization, which is the process of getting your website high in the search engines, or pay-per-click advertising, which is when you do a Google search and you see those ads at the top of the page. That's why Google's worth $560 billion. That was their market cap the last time I checked. And 97, 98% of their revenue comes from that, from ads. And so those are both tools to bring in traffic that is not someone you've had that prior interaction with before. So why is it important to define those two things? Whether you want to have a brand site where you're sending people there and or SEO, because the whole process of the site is different. If you're building it around your brand, aesthetics are important, bringing out who you are and your video, your audio, it's all super important. Search engines really, they can't accurately look at images, they can't really hear audio, and they can't really see video. And so all they have to go by is text, the stuff that is actual text on your website. And it's kind of counterintuitive for a lot of voice actors that they have to write, because it's about their audio and about their video and maybe an image of themselves. And that's a big debate in the industry. People ask me all the time, excuse me, should I put my headshot on my site? And it really depends. Excuse me, just one sec. So there's this fear that the face might not match the voice, and a producer that's coming to look at your site sees your headshot there and says, you know, I'm not even going to listen. Or it biases them once they have listened. How many times have you heard someone on the phone and then met them in real life and said, really? That's who that sound came from? And so the same can be true online. One way around that is a caricature. And so some talent will get a caricature made of them, which is very obviously not accurately representing them. And so it doesn't create that same bias in the viewer. The caricatures is definitely an option. The headshots is good if you are going to be doing on-screen work, or if you feel that your face really does match your voice, and then maybe you don't go that direction at all. But the basic elements of any voice actor website are, first and foremost, your demos. That's what someone's coming there to hear. I mean, that is the most important thing. Second most important thing is ability to contact you. So at its core, those two things are the most important. And the more ways of providing contact, the better. So contact form, email address, phone number, Skype, and anything else you can think of. Social media, I have mixed feelings about, especially featured prominently. because with with your website, your goal is to get people to find you and then contact you. When you send someone to social media, what happens? If I click on someone's Facebook, my Facebook pops up, and yes, I see their page, but I also see my friend Johnny just had a new baby, and so I click on the baby picture, and then I see my friend Leanne, who I haven't talked to in 3 years, like the photo, and I'm curious what happened to her, and so I click on her feed and I look at her, and 15 minutes later, I don't even remember where I am.
And
And
don't forget,
so
there's always the dancing dog videos and that kind of stuff. Listen, I
Absolutely.
just want to mention, I'm not sure if you think we can see you or not, but we can't yet.
Oh no, really? Let's see. How do I? Huh.
You have to click. I sent you I made you the presenter, and you just have to accept that.
Okay. Oh, can you see me now?
Now we can see you, and
Oh,
we see your screen, a blank Google screen as well.
okay, excellent. Oh, so you didn't see me drinking my water before.
No, no, no. But I did, but no one
Oh,
else
okay.
did.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, now you get to see my smiling face. So, where was I? Oh, um, so th those two things are the most important. The contact information and the demos. But pretty much every site that we build, we try to include demos and contact information, a bio, and ideally a brief bio on the front page with the option to go deeper, and then video work if you have it with the option to view more, client logos, same thing, testimonials, and testimonials, it's kind of like when you go to Amazon and you're buying something and you see 5 gold stars and positive reviews, it gives you that sense of security that you're purchasing something that other people have bought before you and had a good experience. And so it's good to at least have one testimonial on there. We'll often do a sliding scroll of testimonials, and then an area that talks about the ways that you can deliver. So whether you have FTP, Source Connect, IPDTL, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, what you're available for. So do you do commercials, corporate narration, medical narration, e-learning, and all the different genres. And then with each of those sections, so I like having each one of those sections on the homepage, but then with each one of those, you want to give people the option to go deeper. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is that if people want to see more, they can go and read your full bio. If people want to see more of your video, they can do that. But it doesn't slow down the loading time of your homepage. So you're giving people kind of a smattering, but it's not overwhelming. It's not scrolling forever. Another reason is that Google's self-proclaimed mission is to organize the world's information. And the more information that you provide Google with, or any other search engine, and the better you organize it for them, the easier time Google's algorithm will have in figuring out what each page of your site is about, and then ranking it in Google. And there's many, many different factors that go into ranking where your site appears on Google. But there's two overarching categories of characteristics or attributes that cause it to rank higher or lower. There's on-screen factors, I'm sorry, on-site factors and off-site factors. So with off-site, the most important one has always been backlinks. And a few years ago, that changed a little bit. It's still backlinks, but before, a backlink could only have a positive impact or no impact, meaning that it would either help you or it wouldn't have any effect one way or the other. But what was happening is people were hiring companies to build thousands or sometimes hundreds of thousands or even millions of links to their website. And so simply because they had hired this company to do that, their website would come up first. And so in order to combat that, Google changed its algorithm to be about relevant contextual backlinks. So what does that mean? If I'm a barbershop and I link to a voice actor's website, it's not going to help because it's not relevant, it's not in context, and so it's either now going to have no impact or it might even hurt you. If I'm an agent or a production company or even a client and I link to your site, and I'm talking about the voiceover that you did for me or something related to voiceover, and within that context, I link to you, now that's like a +1 in your favor. And so that actually boosts you up. Now, this whole negative factor thing where you can build a backlink that actually hurts someone created a whole new industry. And you may have heard the radio commercials about reputation repair. Are there embarrassing articles about you online? We can help. So that's what these companies do, is they end up building bad backlinks to the sites that you want to push down. And then they build other sites that have good backlinks, and those get pushed up. And so that you see that all the time in super competitive industries like the legal profession. Law firms have to deal with that all the time. I haven't seen it in the voiceover world, thankfully. But you do have to be careful where your backlinks are coming from. And with backlinks, there's another important thing which is called follow. So there's a follow and a no follow backlink. And people will often ask someone for a backlink or comment on a blog, and they think they're getting a link back to their website. But really what's happening is there's an attribute that you can give to it. And I can demonstrate this later. My screen is being shared now, right, Graeme? I'll take your silence as a yes. So I'll show it later. But there's a...
Sorry, Joe, I was muted there. All we see is a blank Google search box.
Okay. So now you should be able to see the entire thing, right? The entire Google window?
Yep, we see an entire Google window. Yep.
Okay, and my video actually disappeared. Are you still seeing my video?
Yep, we can see you too.
Oh, okay. All right, great. So there's this attribute that you can add to a link called nofollow. And what that does is it says, I'm not going to pass along any of my link juice to this other person. And so you just have to be careful when you're getting those backlinks that they are regular old follow links. And I'll show an example of that in a little bit. So those are all, that's what off-site SEO is really about. That's the biggest chunk of it right there. On-page SEO has to do with relevant content, things like meta description tags. So I'm just going to do a quick Google search. Oops. So I'm searching for female voiceover talent. And if you notice, I do a lot of consulting with Debbie Grattan's husband, Paul, who's great. And here you have this right here, which is your meta title tag. So those are really important on your site because Google picks those out when it's looking at keywords and trying to figure out what your website is about. This is your meta description tag. And those two things combined are a very, very effective tool for helping your site do well in Google. It's not going to do it on its own, but if the other factors are aligned, that's going to be a significant help. And if you notice, I don't know if you can see it with the screen share, but I searched for female voiceover talent, and right here, these 4 words are bolded. And the reason for that is because Google picked out those keywords out of the meta description. So anyway, now I'm going to hop over to my friend Dan Leonard's site. And Dan is actually the reason why I got involved in the voiceover industry. We were friends for many years. And
well, we won't hold it against you.
Well, we're both from Buffalo, New York. Both of us have since moved to warmer climates. But we spent many years in Buffalo, became good friends, and he introduced me to the world of voiceover. And so this is a brand new site that we're putting together for him. It's actually online now. We're still making some changes to it, but it has many of those elements that I was talking about, and so that's why I'm bringing it up. So we have his name, which obviously you want the site to appear when people search for Dan Leonard, and you also want them to know where they are at any given time when they're looking at the website. So having that grounding, logo upper left, that's typically where native English speakers look to when they're looking on a website. And there's some really interesting things they've done with heat maps. A heat map is that they overlay something on the screen which shows you where people's eyes travel when they're looking at a website, and they actually put some sensors in front of people's eyes to be able to track this. And anyone from a country where they read from left to right looks at things in an F pattern. So they kind of start upper left and then move across the screen to the right and then back down across and then back down to the left. And so your most important things you want to generally be in that upper left or that kind of side right where the F pattern is. And so that's why his demos are front and center. And again, something that I see often when I look at voice actor sites is I'll go to the site and it'll be an attractive site and it'll say something like, click here to listen to my demos. And so you're giving people an extra step to get to the most important thing about your site. So you want to give that to them as soon as possible. Yes, of course, you want them to do more, listen, and then stay. But the statistics say people make a decision within 6 or 7 seconds whether they're going to stay on a site. And so you don't want part of that decision-making time to be them searching for your demos. And so that's why we have this block right here.
Joe,
Yes?
is that the player that you're using, that you've embedded there, that plays the audio, is that a reskinned version of the Bob Merkel Voice Zam product, or is that a proprietary player of your own?
So that's a separate player, and we work with Bob's player all the time. It's great.
Right.
This just happens to be a separate player.
But we're fans of Bob and the Voice Zam product, so even though this isn't the Voice Zam player, it could just as easily be the Voice Zam player. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And actually, we're going to be including the Voice Zam player in certain places on this site. This site actually, we got it up just so I could use it as a demonstration for the webinar. And we're going to be putting as you navigate through the site, we're going to have the Voice Zam player placed on different pages. So I'm a big fan of it as well. And so here you have that section I was talking about, a brief bio. So you have the bio, and you have this right here is actually pretty important. It just looks like a big, bold block of text, but really it's keywords. The only thing here that may not be useful as a keyword is professional, but everything else here is super useful. And if you're using Chrome or Firefox or any of these browsers and you right-click, you can usually do something called Inspect Element. And as you can see, this is an H3 tag. So there's H tags, which are H1 through 6, I believe. And the highest priority is assigned to H1. So if you want to tell Google about the keywords that your site is about, and they have to be logical and make sense. It can't just be a jumble of keywords. But if you want to give it headings to look at, H1 tags, H2 tags, H3 tags, H4, all of those are important. So we've got male voiceover talent in there, and those are all keywords. And then we also have a number of the types of voiceover that Dan does. So e-learning, corporate training, documentaries. So this site it's optimized to some extent for SEO. I'm going to show you another site here in a second that's really optimized for SEO. And so here we have some of Dan's video work, and again, you're trying to give people a whole bunch of information on the front without overloading them. So you want to give them a little bit of each one of these categories and then the option to look at more. Here's that testimonial area that I was talking about, and then a client logo slider, and then of course a way to get in contact with Dan. He's a founding member of WOVO, what he's available for, and then just some more navigation down here. So now I'm going to show you another site. And this is actually another very good friend of mine, Melissa Exelberth. And she has 2 sites. So the first site, and I'm going to actually show you the contrast because it's pretty significant. if you look at her brand site, anybody that knows Melissa, this is her brand. You see this site and you say, okay, I get it. This site is great for showing who she is, but it's never going to do well in search engines because this is all a graphic. Yeah, you've got a little bit of text right here, and it's easy to use. It's a great little site, but it's not large enough, doesn't have enough content to do well in search. And so we're building most of this new site, which when we're done will probably have anywhere from 150 to 200 pages. And I know that sounds like a lot, but most of that is not geared towards a human reading it, although all of the text should make sense for a human being. But it's really about having someone do a search, find that page, and then see Melissa's demos. So here we've got a home page, which is lots of text, and then we're breaking up the types of voiceover that she does into categories and then subcategories. And that allows Google to really drill down on what each one of these pages is about. And so we've got obviously commercial, broadcast, corporate, etc. And then I'm going to go to explainer videos as an example. And so on the explainer videos page, we've got a bunch more of that text. And that text is giving Google exactly what it's looking for with this page. Yes, you've got her demos right here. And notice, by the way, they're off to the right. There's a reason for that. So the way Google looks at a website is it doesn't see what you're seeing here. It sees this. It sees code. And so the code, the way websites are coded, it's generally left to right, left to right, left to right. And so you want to put your most important content closer to the starting point that Google's looking. And so that's why the player is off to the right and the text is to the left. You're giving Google those keywords, that text, before it has to go through audio, which doesn't really it doesn't really do anything for your SEO. It's not bad, but Google can't hear what you're saying in that audio and then do anything with that. You can tag your audio, which can help, but having that text first really is good. And then you've got your videos down here. Now, breaking up your voiceover genres can be difficult, especially if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot under your belt, or you specialize, like maybe you just do audiobooks. And so another way to build out this large body of content without having to do this is blogging. And I'm not talking about writing about the cute kitty that you just got. It's very nice that you got a cute kitty, and I like cute kitties, but the people who are hiring you are not looking for cute kitties. And so what you want to do is talk to those producers, talk to those casting directors, and figure out the questions that they're asking. It can be the questions that they're asking you, or it can be something that you deduce based on your conversation with them. And then you want to answer those questions on your blog. And so an example of that might be, what's more credible in a automotive commercial, a male or a female voice? And if you can answer that, then you're targeting something called long-tailed search. Long-tailed search is not when someone searches for explainer video voice actor or female voiceover talent. It's when they're typing a whole long question into Google. And that whole long question, then Google tries to find the best answer to it. And if your blog is the best answer to that, then voila, you pop up and the producer clicks on your site. They see your answer, but more importantly, they also see your demos and anything else you want them to. So that's kind of an easy way to get lots of pages of content on your site, not break it up where, especially if you don't have a lot of genres or you're just starting out, and still do a decent job with SEO. So I have a ton more to say. I talk about this all the time, but what I'd love to do is maybe take a look at a few sites and weave in other aspects that I wanted to talk about. And so if anybody has a site that they want to offer up, I'm happy to take a look now.
Okay, let's start with, and I'm just, a random one is DK, as in David Presser, voiceservice.com. DKvoiceservice.com.
Alrighty, here we go. Okay. And I'm just going to close this other tab. All right. So feel free, by the way, if you have a specific question about the site, to let me know, and I'm happy to look at that also. There's a decent amount of text, which is good. These, to me, these little lines of text look like links, and so I want to click on them and either go to a page that talks about your documentaries or lets me listen to or view something. And so while that's not an SEO thing, and it's good that you're listing those, it's from a usability standpoint, it would be nice if I could take an action based on seeing that. Up here, this whole logo is a graphic, but there's no imagery there, and so it would be great if instead of having this as a graphic, you converted it to text, which Google could see. And so you've got that keyword voice in there, and voiceover specialist is also a great set of keywords. Voiceover, I mean, that's obvious, and even specialist isn't bad, but because it's an image, Google can't see it. And so obviously when there's a picture of something, you can't do that, but when it's just straight text like that, I would strongly recommend converting it to actual text. It looks like the reliable, customer-oriented, and easy to direct is also, is it a tag? Yeah, that's also an image. And so I would convert that as well. And then the rest of this is text, which is good. There's a nice big picture of a microphone, and that's a conversation I have every single day. Do I put a mic on my website? And it's up to the individual person. Some people absolutely have to have a mic, and other people absolutely say, I do not want it. And so I don't have strong feelings one way or the other. It's more of an individual thing. I like how the site is broken up into different sections, and so it's easy to look here and it says, all right, I know what this person specializes in, request a quote. There isn't a contact form here, and that's not the end of the world. The reason I like having a contact form is because it gives me tracking ability. And analytics, at least for me, is extremely important, especially if I care about making sure that my site is optimized for the things that people are searching for and understanding the path that they take once they get to my site. So there's two things that you should remember. There's something called Google Webmaster Tools, and it was recently rebranded to Search Console. But if you search for Google Webmaster Tools, you'll find it. And if you add that to your site, you'll get some basic data which can be very helpful. Things like what Google thinks your website is about. It'll actually give you keywords. Another thing is it will tell you what search terms are used when your site appears, meaning if I search for voiceover specialist and this site comes up, it will, even if someone doesn't click on it, in the Webmaster Tools, it will tell me that. It will also tell me what position it was. Was it position 5 or 2 or 7? And did someone actually click on it? And by the way, that position, where you come up in Google, is so important. They've done tons of studies, and over 90% of searchers never go past the first page of Google when they're looking for something, and 60 to 80% click on the first 3 choices. So, you know, if you're on page 5, you don't exist. Even if you're on page 2, essentially, you don't exist. And so that position is really, really important.
Joe,
Yes.
can I jump in for a sec? So,
absolutely.
So first of all, I mean, a lot of this stuff is kind of the nuts and bolts of, you know, the nitty-gritty of website SEO. If I'm a voice actor and you know, I know nothing, man. I have no idea SE what, and so I guess one option is, of course, they come to Edge Studio and to voiceactorwebsites.com, and we can look after this for them. But
Hmm.
if they wanted to use like Squarespace or one of these other even God forbid
Weebly, yeah.
Wix, I mean, is this kind of SEO um, sensitivity built into some of these other platforms?
The excuse me. The SEO of those sites is debatable. I think it's always better to have a self-hosted website. That said, if you want to build something simple and quickly, they can be extremely useful. So if you're looking to build something yourself and you want to put up your demos and a bio, then yeah, there's nothing wrong with using one of those. If you really want to craft your site around a brand, take SEO into account, or even plan a larger site, then I think a WordPress site or one of the other platforms, but I'm a big fan of WordPress. That's the way to go because it gives you complete flexibility. While with those systems, you're limited to the functionality and templates that are built into them. So you can do things like the H tags that I was talking about, and on most of them you can write meta tags and description tags, but you're not going to get the type of functionality that you would from a custom built site. Another thing that I wanted to try with this site is responsiveness, and that's something I didn't mention before, but it's become unbelievably important for two reasons. One, and what I mean by responsive is that the website responds to the screen size. So if you're looking on a computer that has a big screen, or a computer that has a small screen, or a tablet, or a cell phone, that it responds and reshapes accordingly to look correct and function correctly. And so obviously that's important from a human standpoint because you don't want to have someone pinch and squeeze and zoom in and not be able to click on the right thing. And then it's also really important because Google announced a few months ago that they're going to start demoting sites that don't have responsive designs. And so it's important for both of those. And so I'm just going to try resizing this screen. And this is an example of what a website looks like when it's not responsive. So you get this horizontal scroll bar. And it as I get larger and smaller, the elements don't move around. And I'm just going to show you what Dan's site looks like when we do that. And so you see there's no horizontal scroll bar, and as I move the screen larger and smaller, the elements move in order to fit that screen size. And eventually you get this mobile menu, which allows someone to navigate on a device where it's made for touch. And even these videos drop below each other. So that's the whole idea of responsive web design, that the elements shift around and grow and shrink to function correctly in all screen sizes. So back to this site, I like that it's broken up. There's some nice keywords there. The red looks good with the black, and there is contact information here. I like having contact information at the top because it's the second most important thing on your site. After someone listens to you, that's what they want to be able to do. And most websites that you look at have it either upper in a bar at the very top, or upper left or upper right. And so I like that it's here, and I would also probably put it up here. And then having reviews, that's great. There's that social media that I was talking about, and I would click on one of these, but then it would go to my Facebook, and I don't know what we'd see, so I won't. And let's see if there's any other specific questions about the site. I'm happy to answer. I'm going to take a quick look at the source code. Oh, so here's something to keep in mind. And this is obviously a more technical thing, but it's just something to think about. One of the languages that's used in developing sites is called CSS. And in general, you want to take that CSS and put it in a separate file. And you don't really have to worry about this unless you're building your own site, or if someone else is building your site, just to make sure that they do it. But you want to package that all in a separate file. And so this way Google doesn't have to sift through that. And as you see on my screen, this is all CSS that we're looking at. And so we're not getting to the meat of the content until about line 290. And so by putting all that CSS in a separate file, you can get to the content much, much quicker, which is good for Google. So if there's another specific question about this site, I'm happy to answer. And otherwise, we can take a look at another one. Oh, actually, before we do, I just clicked on Listen Now. And what I'd love to see here is a player, an embedded player. When I click on it, it actually takes me to another window with the audio. And the only way for me to get back to the site is to close that window. So that's another suggestion, would be to have an embedded player there.
Okay, so let's move on to another site then.
Alrighty.
How about michellefergusonvo.com? No, with two X.
Oops, you're going to see my lack of spelling abilities now. Ferguson VO.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ooh, that was cool. Okay, so I like the colors. They stand out. It has a mobile style menu, which I think would be great on mobile. It actually, as I shrink the window down, it covers the logo, which I think is, with a cool little bubble like this, it's going to be impossible not to. It's definitely different. So as someone coming to the site for the first time, I am thinking about the fact that this person has set themselves apart. From a usability standpoint, I think I would like to see maybe that bubble already open, and so I don't have to click on menu. It's just sitting there, because it doesn't take away from the design aesthetic, and it makes it a little bit easier. Because when I first came to the site, I actually missed that. I didn't see that, and so I was just going to keep scrolling down. The text, this white, is easy to read. Oh, that's cute. I'm going to click Listen Now, and it scrolls down the site. We've got here's a good example of the voice end player that we were talking about before. A nice implementation of that. And there's lots of background imagery. When you put text on a colored background, it's often hard to read. I actually can read this just fine. And then here we have the contact area. This dark text right here, I might have a little bit of trouble reading. And then we've got our social media. Okay, so it's a one-page scroll site, and if you're trying to make an impression, if this is a brand site, then I think it does that. It definitely makes an impression. I haven't seen a site that looks quite like this before. And it has the basic elements that I was talking about. I would probably move the demo player up, because that idea of bringing it above the fold, it's good for the user experience, because that's what they're looking for. If I'm a producer and I come here, I'm looking for your demos. Okay, I don't see them. I scroll a little bit. I don't see them. I go back up. I'm looking for the menu, and then maybe I see it here, and I click on demos, and then I go down. So when you're a producer looking at tens or hundreds of sites, a site like this will make an impression on them, and sometimes they'll say, you know what, I'm just going to go elsewhere. So I think bringing that up would be a good idea, and maybe even having 2 instances of a player. The one-page scroll sites, overall, I'm not a fan of, although I don't think this is a bad implementation of it, simply because they sometimes take longer to load, because you're putting all of the information on one page, and also because you're not organizing that information for Google. So it's not like it has a demos page and a bio page and a contact page and a video page to look at. It's just all one long page. And so when you do Google searches, you almost never see one-page sites that are appearing high in Google for that reason. So it depends on what the goal of the site is, and it always comes down to that. But I like the quirkiness of it. I like the uniqueness of it. I think that the colors work, and there's a nice amount of text on here. You've got this up here, the keywords right here, which is great. More here, and then a longer bio here, and then that contact form. And the contact form is nice because it gives you the tracking abilities, and I think I got off track before, but when I was talking about Google Webmaster Tools, there's also Google Analytics, which gives you tons more data than you would probably ever want, and you have to be careful with it because you can end up spending all of your time looking at data. But it's really, really neat because it allows you to do things like see what search term someone came in on, the exact path they took through your website, then the fact that they submitted a contact form, and that's where it's nice. You can see what search terms people came in, and then which one of those actually contacted you, so you know which are your more effective search terms. And then a contact form also allows you to track where your contacts are coming from. So not everybody says, hey, I found you via your website, but when you have a contact form on your site, you can set the subject. So every time you get a message from your site, it says contact from michellefergusonvo.com, and so you know where your traffic's coming from. All right, let's take a look at another site. Or we can actually, it's 7:45 Eastern, so maybe we should open up to questions. I'm happy to take a look at another site or just open up to questions. I'll leave it up
Let's
to you.
look at one more because it's funny as you are talking about each of these sites. I'm knocking on questions off the list because you're answering them. Google Analytics was one of them. So
Oh, and I'm happy to talk about that more if people want.
let's go to Blair Siebert. So it's Blair Seibert
Hold
dot
on. Blair, C-I,
uh,
spell that
so
again?
Seibert.
S-I-R-B-E-R-T.
SEI.
You actually cut out, so I couldn't hear what you said.
So it's Seibert.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Okay, and the reason I suggested Blair's is because Blair also asked the question, do you think that colors used in the website are important? So I'm assuming that Blair might perhaps have a colorful website. We'll see.
Aha. Okay. Yes, they are if you're trying to make an impression. So, you know, a clean corporate look has certain colors that are incorporated. A fun cartoony, you know, if you're doing animation, then it's very different ones. And actually, before we go into that, I noticed something when I did that Google search. If you look at the title tag on Blair's site, it's view on mobile. So the meta description is good. I would say that's not, it probably wasn't intentional, but you want to change that meta title tag to probably your name and something to do with voiceover. For the search engines, and also just because someone who's searching is going to see that and not be sure what the site is about. And by the way, feel free to just send me an email, and I'm happy to help you with that. I'll just tell you how to do that really quick. So the colors are important. These are kind of soft, calming colors, and so if you do corporate narration, I would say probably not the right colors. But if you do warm, feel-good things, commercials, then these colors could work very nicely. The down here, it looks like there's a rectangle rectangular bar. I don't see anything in it, so I'm not sure if there's something supposed to come up in there. But overall, this gradient is soothing. I think if we cut the gradient higher up and then had a bar with something below it that was maybe in white or another solid color, it might give more of a focus to a certain area of it. So right now I look at the site and I see, I'm going to try closing my eyes and open them. Okay, so the first thing that my eyes go to are the headshot, and she's a very pretty gal. And then I see the logo, and then the logo has an arrow that points down, so my eyes go down to the bio, and then I go over to the demos, which is actually, I'm surprised because they're the brightest thing on the page, so I would have thought that my eyes would have gone to them first. And that's not a bad thing, making your demos the most visible thing, because that's what people are looking for. So I like that they stand out. The green, blue, and purple color scheme, it's one that I haven't seen before, and it's an interesting combination. And I'm just going to show you really quickly before we go on to the next site. View page source. If you, oh, and there's a whole bunch of that CSS that I was talking about. I actually don't even see the meta title tag. Oh, there it is. So the meta title tag is home, which is also, you should have something else in it, but for some reason it's showing view on mobile. But feel free to shoot me an email, and that goes to anyone who has any questions. You can send me an email, and I'm happy to answer whatever you got. And I'm just going to show you an example. This is our site. And so you asked about colors. I have this super bright background with lots of color, and I put it there for multiple reasons. One, I thought it was pretty, but also I wanted it to be attractive to people who liked different colors, not just one. And when I made that a solid color, everything else, the red stood out, or just the green stood out, or just the yellow stood out. And so I wanted to have more of a depth of color. So I personally like color, and as long as you don't, do something that is not legible, I think that colors, the beauty of colors kind of lies in the eyes of the beholder, and figuring out what you want your website to do. If you want it to be cartoony and you're going after animation, then lots of color is great. If you want to be that corporate look, then maybe black, white, and one or two accent colors is the way to go. So it's 7:52. I'm happy to look at another site or questions.
Oh, we got some questions that are coming in.
All right.
So Tim is saying some of what you said tonight kind of runs contrary to, urban myth with regards to what makes a good website. Like, and I'm guilty of this because I teach a business and money class here at Edge, and I talk about don't stress about your website. Keep it simple. It just needs to be there, and it's a repository for your demos. But what you're saying is that more is better, because the more pages, the more visible it is. The more pages and the more text, the more visible it is to Google.
So if your goal, like when I showed Melissa's site before, she's got that great little site, and her brand is really strong, and she didn't need anything else to establish her brand. But people find that site because she sends them there. And so if you're just starting out and SEO is not your big concern, you want something that you can put on your business cards and that you can tell people, hey, go listen to my demos, then a site that looks professional and has your demos and your contact information is really that's what you need. You don't need anything else. You need the demos and the contact information. But once other things come into play, if you want to be found in search engines, if you are going to be doing pay-per-click advertising, and that's something that I didn't even get into really, but you need actual content on your site, and yeah, the more of it, the better. And it should be useful to human beings, but it doesn't have to be built specifically for human beings. It has to be logical and reflect what you do and talk about the things that you want to come up in Google for. So I wouldn't say that either way is wrong. Building a small site that's really focused and just your demos, at its core, that's what you need. You need people to be able to listen to you, but you won't be found that way.
Michael is saying, or he's asking, does an auto slideshow, which I think is also called a carousel, right?
Mhm.
Does an auto slideshow on your homepage work? Is it helpful? Is it useful?
So are you talking about pictures or audio or
Yeah.
testimonials?
I think that he's referring to pictures, but I guess you could have anything can be like anything can be in those in that container, right? I mean, you could put audio in there, I guess.
Yeah. So I would be careful with anything that you need to re-engage with, meaning that if I have an audio or a video player in there and I need to click pause or be able to see the video that's playing, I know a few people, in fact, I had a conversation with someone about this the other day, that they had video in their carousel, in their slider. And so people would click play, but then a few seconds later, the video would slide off the screen. And so if you have some sort of picture with a call to action, then yeah, I think that can be great because it can give you some motion on the screen, something interesting, and allows you to have more than one call to action. Maybe hit someone with something that is interesting to them when the first slide wasn't. But if it's audio or video, I would stay away from it because unless it takes you to another screen with that on there, because once that slide continues, you lose them. And I brought this up because we've got uh, these testimonials here, and I think, yeah, here. So they slide in and out, or they kind of fold in and out. And so with testimonials, it can be great because it allows you to get more testimonials on your page. With logos, it can be great. Anything that, again, doesn't require that re-engagement.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Amina is asking, and this is a question, Joe, I get all the time. She says that I have an author website and I have a VO website and then I have another website with a blog. And the more typical context I hear is that I'm an on-camera actor and I'm a voice actor. From an
Hmm.
SEO standpoint, should I have like one common landing page and then have people branch out from there, or should I maintain three separate sites and try and manage three different sets of SEO?
It's harder to get one site to do well in search engines for disparate things. And so if you're an author and an on-screen actor and a voice actor, if you're purely talking about SEO, then I would say it's better to have three sites. It, in a situation like that, what I would probably do is I would have a main brand site, which is not meant to do well in Google. And I'm just going to draw a parallel from the legal world again. So if I'm a law firm and I do personal injury and criminal defense and intellectual property, I'm going to have a really nice looking site that I put on all my business cards. It's on my television commercials. But then the sites that actually bring me money from the internet I build a site dedicated just to personal injury, a site dedicated just to intellectual property, and so on. And so the same here. I would say in an ideal world, you have your brand site, which does have links to all the different stuff that you do and the different sites, but then you have those different sites and each one of those is meant to bring in organic traffic that's based on what that particular site is about. Because that targeted approach is going to get you a much better result than trying to have a site that is a voice actor and an author and an on-screen talent.
Gary is asking, could Joe please talk a little bit about web hosting options? And you had mentioned WordPress earlier, and then that leads to kind of a second question from another attendee tonight asking WordPress.com versus WordPress.org, and what's the difference? And which one's better?
Great questions. WordPress.com means that your website is hosted at WordPress, and it's going to be essentially a blog. There's nothing wrong with that. Their hosting is great, but it's not really meant for building custom full-blown websites. It's kind of like having a blogger account, blogger.com or one of those online blogging platforms. WordPress.org is it's software that you install on your web host, and this is where I'll get to the web hosting side of this. A web host is essentially a piece of a computer that you're renting that's somewhere sitting in a server stack, and you're storing your files there. So you have your domain name, which you purchase through a registrar, and then you point your domain name to your web host. Sometimes it's the same company, sometimes not, and you point it through something called DNS. All web hosts are not created equal, and they fluctuate. So you want to look at things like how good is their technical support? How fast are their servers? Do they overcrowd their servers? If you're going to be using email through them, do their email servers get blacklisted? And if they do, you can go with something called Google Apps for Work, which was just changed to G Suite, and that gives you really good email service, and I think they charge $5 a month per user for the email service. But with web hosting, if you are looking for what to look for, it should be somewhere between, I'd say, $7 to $15 a month. You should have, for that price, you should have essentially unlimited space, the ability to install WordPress or create MySQL databases, which would allow you to install WordPress. And think about it like if you get Microsoft Office and you install it on your computer. So that's kind of what WordPress is like. You're taking software and you're installing it on this piece of a computer that you're renting somewhere. The other things I'd look for with a web host are a 99.9% uptime guarantee, I would ask them, I would call and I would ask how many websites they put on a shared account. Most people go with a shared hosting account, and that means that you're sharing it with, not the specific account, but the server, you're sharing it with many other people. You can get it dedicated, but that's much more expensive and overkill for almost any voiceover talent. And other things would be, look at reviews. That's every web hosting company has good and bad reviews, and there's actually a few years ago there was a company called EIG, Endurance International Group, and they came in and bought up many of the web hosting companies. So HostGator and Bluehost and all these companies that you hear about, many of them are owned by the same parent. GoDaddy is still a separate company, and there's still plenty of others. So I hope that was helpful.
And here's a good question to end on, I think, Joe. Holly's asking, okay, all of this sounds great, but what if I just wanted to have Joe do it? How does one go about getting Joe to do it? And just give us a rough ballpark as to what a starter website has some level of SEO kind of built into it. What's that going to set a new voice actor back?
So we have a few different options. We have simple one-page sites, which allow people to get their demos up there, their bio up there, and their contact information up there. And those, it depends on exactly what they want on there, but they're pretty cheap. We're talking about under $600, probably, depending on it, ranging from $300 to $500. Then we've got template sites where we have layouts that we know that work really well for voice actors because we create tons of voice actor sites. And so we pick one of those layouts and we customize it with colors and graphics and your demos and video and text and everything. And those start at $600. And then we've got custom sites where we're building a site around your brand, and those those things that make up a brand. It can be colors, it can be a concept, it can be a reflection of your voice and the characteristics of your voice. It can be many different things. and those start at 1100. And then we also do things like caricatures and logo design and audio production and video production. And we even do accounting services now for the voiceover industry, because essentially every voice actor is a small business, and small business folks, they do what they do well, and there's all these other things like taxes that you don't have to worry about. So if you do want to talk to me about it, I'm happy to hop on the phone. You can go to voice actor websites and fill out the form, and make sure you mention that you heard us on the Edge webinar. You can actually say referred by. You can just say Edge there. You can give me a call. I'll give you my phone number. It's 716-759-4636. It's 716-759-4636. And that's that Buffalo area code, that 716. I still have it. And you can do that, or you can send me an email to joe@voiceactorwebsites.com. And any of those ways, I'm happy to hop on the phone with you, talk about your site or what you want to do, or just the industry as a whole. I really love this. It's one of the things that I really like about the voiceover industry is that it's so collaborative. So in so many other industries, you have this sense of, well, if we're working in the same space, then you're my competition. And of course, there's competition in the voiceover world, but there's also this sense of we're all in this together. And if my voice isn't right for the job, then I know someone who is, and I'm going to pass the job along to them. And I see that all the time, where talent have an audition that comes across their desk, and it's just not a right fit for them, and so they'll pass it on to someone else. And I do that too. I hear about jobs, and I say, oh, we just talked to so and so, and I think they're a really good fit for that, and I'll pass it on to them. So that collaborative nature of this industry is why I love it, and I'm happy to just have a talk with you about whatever you want.
Fantastic, Joe. Just to clarify, when you say that an introductory kind of, one-pager website, maybe $600 or $700, does that include, like, someone's going to have to buy their hosting with GoDaddy or whoever, but does that include you actually like installing whatever files need to be installed and installing WordPress and all that stuff?
It means you'll have a site when you're done. So that we'll install WordPress, we'll get it all set up. And so when you go to yourname.com, you've got it sitting right there. It's up and live.
That's pretty incredible. Listen, Joe, I can't thank you enough. This has been awesome, and I've ended up actually with more questions than answers, and we have to have you back.
I'd love to.
Yeah. And to all of you on the call who are Edge Studio students, we've got a good working relationship with Joe, and if you have, feel free, of course, to reach out to Joe directly through the contact information that he's provided, and you can always reach Joe and voiceactorwebsites.com through your education advisor at Edge Studio as well, and that's 888-321-EDGE. 888-321-3343. Joe, again, I wish we had more time, but I kind of like leaving everybody wanting more, and we're going to have you back sometime really soon.
Excellent. I can't wait. And I travel quite a bit, so maybe next time I'll be able to come into studio and we can do it live from the studio.
We'd love to have you in New York. Absolutely. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. And
thank you, Graeme.
Have a great night. Book lots of work, and we'll be talking with you again soon.
Thanks.